Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're sitting when you're listening to this. I'm JD Messenger, and I'm the founder, excuse me, I'm the executive director of the Do More Good movement. I just promoted myself to founder there. Sorry, Jay Wilkinson. Um, and our purpose in the Do More Good movement is to educate, empower, and amplify businesses and business leaders who are doing more good. And one of our core pillars is about caring for people, and our values and virtues include things like kindness and empathy and compassion. And I'm really pleased to introduce Robin Camarote and Loretta Cooper, who are thought buddies, and they're going to be talking about the art of thinking in pairs. And I feel like I'm being double timed here. Not exactly sure what's going to happen, but I love the idea that what Robin is going to share, and both of them are writers, speakers, television personalities, coaches, helping purpose-driven people. What I love about this topic is that we're always thinking in pairs. We may not just be consciously aware of it. Every conversation, every relationship, every dialogue. And so, what these ladies are going to do are enlighten us a little bit about this art and how, when we become more intentional of thinking in pairs, we can turn it into a powerful tool or technique or method. So, welcome, ladies. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
JD.
Katie.
Well, hello, Loretta. How are you?
Hello, Robin. I'm terrific. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So I am going to pop up some slides, but as JD said, we're going to keep this super informal and conversational. And the slides are really there to just kind of help keep us on track and help you kind of follow along. But before I pop in the slides, I just want to tell you where this, not the idea itself, but the topic and kind of writing about this topic came from. So right now it is a really chilly day in early December here in Northern Virginia. But imagine like 2 to 3 months ago, a gorgeous fall day, and sitting on a patio with one of your work besties and having just another enriching, just delicious conversation. And that was with my thought buddy, Loretta, who is here today. So I am so excited to kind of share this conversation with you all. And she and I are going to kind of go back and forth about how this started for us and how you might bring this kind of very special relationship into your work. So, Loretta, do you remember that lunch?
Of course I do. Of course I do. But I also know that part of the richness of that lunch is that we've had an ongoing dialogue for almost a decade, I think. And it's been long walks. There have been many lunches. There have been some spa days. So there's a multifaceted and a lot of texture to that gets us to that richness. So there's also been a long investment along the way. It didn't just happen in a single lunch, I think.
Yes, yes, you are exactly right. Okay, so with that, I am going to go ahead and show some slides here. Just one moment. All right.
Does it work in threes?
Yeah, yeah, but today it's a thought buddy trio. So, and JD, I kind of I love everything you all are doing with the Do More Good movement and that belief that we just are more effective leaders and more successful in business when we lead with kindness and love and generosity. Oh gosh, when I first came across that, that just clicked for me in a big way. And I just knew it would click for Loretta too. So as we go through this, what we really want to share is that there's this very special relationship that you may have already with someone in your career or in your life. And it brings tremendous power, this tremendous power of kind of one-on-one thinking. And it's kind of different than some of the other professional relationships we have. And we're going to talk about that. So as we go through, I'm going to share kind of three concepts, two reflection questions to maybe think about how this might apply in your life, and then invite you to take one immediate action by the end of this conversation that'll get the ball rolling.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, going to be on the hook. So,
Yeah,
all right.
well,
So,
given I'm the only one who's not a speaker here, I could be in trouble.
well, so
I think you'll be fine.
I will put you on the spot, Jay, for our
Yeah, yeah,
first question. And so
yeah,
I
sign me up.
really, for all of our listeners, maybe think about this as well as JD thinks about it. So when you are stuck on an idea, what's one of your go-to moves? Like, what do you do?
I go for a walk.
Mm.
Um, so, I think, when you step outside and you walk biologically, physiologically, amazing things are happening. So and I do that all the time. I do it when I'm writing. I do it if I have a big project. Um, Journal, I guess I would say I also journal in the sense that when I'm walking, I'm talking and I talk into my phone and talk notes. So that's a form of journaling, just not with my hand.
I love it. I love it. Loretta, what about you? What are some things you do when you're stuck on an idea?
I think I do all of these things. Taking it for a walk is a big thing with me. There's a lake that I near my home that is about 5 miles around, and it is just the right length for me to do exactly what you were saying, JD. Not just exercise, but also really there's something amazing that starts happening in your brain when you're moving, and I get smarter than I am when I'm just sitting by myself. So taking stuff for a walk is really good. I also often journal. And I also overthink alone. So all of those, none of those things are mutually exclusive. I think I could probably do all of those things.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, what I found fascinating is, I was having these experiences, maybe being stuck on an idea, and I would have a breakthrough, whether it was like on a walk or on a run or in a conversation, and I didn't understand kind of the pattern behind it until I kind of came across this research that there is real science that was done about, I don't know, 12 or 15 years ago about the power of thinking in pairs over the value of just group brainstorming. Now, many of us are in something like a group brainstorm like all day, every day in those back-to-back meetings. So this is not that. But when you're actually with one other person, the trust goes up, the ego goes down, and two people just talking something through together can go deeper on a topic and think more clearly. So I found that fascinating. So I'll ask you now to both kind of think about this. Think about a time where you had a really energizing one-on-one conversation and tell me about like what made it work for you. What made it different from a regular meeting?
Um, I think, everything is energy and energy is everything. And I say that from sort of a spiritual, philosophical, and even physics perspective. And so I feel we resonate and we connect on brain waves, which is a proven science. And so what I mean by that is, we've got this supercomputer sitting on our head that's processing 38 trillion operations a second. It's a million times faster than my MacBook Pro. And we sense and we're sending and receiving messages. And so sometimes you say the exact same thing as the other person, which if you calculated the probability is impossible. So it literally means our brain waves have synced. And so and the opposite is true when, you just don't feel comfortable, you don't like that person, you can't explain why. So I think that the most amazing and energizing conversations, a little bit like this one, where you feel synchronistic or simpatico, there's a true energetic physical thing happening where you're resonating on that feeling and it creates endorphins and all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, those endorphins are real. Like it can feel different in your body. Yeah, Loretta, what about you? What made, like, if you just think about one of the last ones that you had, like, what made it different from just a regular conversation?
Yeah, I love everything that JD said, and I was thinking about this before this session today, and I was thinking about different collaborations that I have in my work life, and there's one person in particular that came to mind that I collaborate with a lot, and we are highly productive together. So, like if you were to see the Venn diagram of our skill set, there's probably only like 10 to 12% overlap. Like she has an entirely different, she's a Lean Six Sigma black belt. Like she has an entirely different skill set than I do. And when we get together, we get stuff done. Like we're highly productive because our energy is going out. But like our buddy conversations, Robin, are different than that. They have a different quality. And I would say, I don't know. I think our Venn diagram is probably, what would you say? What would you say the overlap in our Venn diagram is? It's high. It's pretty
Yeah,
high,
yeah,
right? So we're not doing so much productivity. It is more creative. Like
yes.
you're seeing the things that I'm seeing from a slightly different perspective. We're speaking the same language. We're finishing each other's sentences in a way, but we're also there's something in there that's also stretching us to the outer boundaries of what we have to offer. And I think we're also really good about offering actionable feedback to one another, like because we've worked together for so long and we both know that we both want to get better at our craft. It's I feel like the feedback that I get from you is some of the most generous feedback I get. In fact, there have been times that you've given me feedback that has been pivotal in my career. So it's all of that. There's a stretching, but it's more creative and I think internal.
Yeah. Oh my
I
gosh, you've
think
hit. Oh, I'm
something
sorry,
you
JD. Go
said,
ahead.
something you had on the last slide, I think is very important, is trust goes up and ego goes down. And trust, according to Stephen Covey, is four things. Uh, you trust someone if you trust their intention,
Mhm.
if you think they're competent, they have integrity, and they deliver results. And the flip side is if you don't trust someone's intention, you think they're not being authentic or genuine, you don't trust them. And so if they can't deliver results or they don't have competency or they don't have integrity, you don't trust them. So I think part of what you're describing is when you've got a very deep trusting relationship, then you can open up and maybe have a shared goal. But I'm stuck on the ego one because women are much better at doing this than men. And I think that's because of the ego issue. But anyway, just wanted to share that.
It was
Yeah.
that's so interesting. Loretta, I know you want to react to that.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's hard for women to do this.
Yeah.
I think there's a generational piece of this. When women were busy being the first in their field, a generation ahead of me, I think there was probably a lot less collaboration because there was only room for one competent woman in the room. And I think when I was coming up, especially in network television, women did not collaborate with each other because there was a real scarcity mentality. And I
Hmm.
think one of the things that I took out of that environment with me was that I wanted to show up differently. I wanted to see my female colleagues as friends and people who we could run together. Like because by the time I got there, there was more than one woman in every room. So I think it's changing, but I still think that it can be just as difficult for women to collaborate as it can be for men. It's just different barriers, I think. I don't know. What
Yeah.
do you think, Paul?
Pull the thread on a couple of things that you said. So, JD, I would totally agree. Trust is a prerequisite. The trust absolutely has to be there. And we have trusting relationships with lots of different kinds of people in our lives. I trust my boss. I trust my colleagues that I work with. But there's something unique about this thought buddy relationship. And so maybe just to say what it's not first, it's not coaching, even though Loretta and I are actually both coaches, but we are pretty careful, I think, actually not to coach each other unless specifically asked, no coaching against somebody's will. But so it's not coaching, it's not a paid relationship, it's not therapy, and it's not just kind of like a random brainstorm. It's intentional. And the thing about what Loretta and I do in our thought buddy conversations is, first of all, when we schedule them, we know that's kind of why we're coming together for that. Like we sometimes kind of go out for lunch or something like that. It's a little bit more casual, catch up on family, that kind of stuff. But this is a dedicated conversation. So it's a peer, somebody you kind of view as an equal in terms of kind of their place in their career. It's not your boss. It is very low pressure. But Loretta, you also said something that's important about this relationship that's different from some of the high trust relationships we have with colleagues. There's no end goal in mind. It's intentional, but we're not working to get a particular project done.
Mhm.
So what Loretta and I do is each bring unique things that we're working on individually to the conversation. Sometimes we do a little tee up ahead of time so somebody can be thinking about it. Otherwise, we just kind of go on the fly. And it's this chance to just kind of riff, reflect, maybe push around a little bit, like, what about that? And that's where the conversation just kind of opens up. So that's kind of how we think of thought buddies being different from those other kinds of relationships that you have in your career. So,
I like what you said. The intentional peer-to-peer, the rules, so to speak. But the one thing that I really liked, well, I liked them all, but that it's scheduled, that you've set a date, and therefore when you do that, the supercomputer, the subconscious mind is already focusing on an intention, and it's scanning. I mean, that's the way our brain works. We have filters, and the reticular activation system is allowing things to come in or be seen. Otherwise, if we were processing everything we were seeing, we would drop dead in a nanosecond. We would just overload. So the rules or guidelines that you're establishing, I think, very important. It's not coaching, it's not therapy, it's intentional. It's like a peer to peer. But I also like that there's not a goal. There's not, because when you have a goal, then we start to, dare I say, manipulate, or we're trying to persuade. So, you know, anyway, it's riffing and sharing, which is really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, you got it. Loretta, what would you add?
Oh, I think exactly that. We show up with ideas, but not an agenda. And it sounds
No
like it's
agenda.
semantics, but um, that's what I think makes it collaborative. Like I'm not showing up to get anything out of Robin, and she's not, I know she doesn't want anything out of me. What we're really looking for is, JD, kind of what you were talking about in the very beginning. It's that energy that gets created by the two of us turning on something together.
Well, but I mean, just think about what you said and how rare that is. In almost every interaction we have, someone is coming in with an intention and a motivation, and intentions and motivations are different. Every intention has a motivation. It could be something for me, or something, for something bigger than me. Basically, that's the two sides of the motivations. But to come in, and that drives, I mean, if you think about what's happening in the country and politics today, the two parties, doesn't matter what side you're on, but nobody can come together on something bigger than themselves. So I love the fact that there's no agenda, but ideas. Well said. Y'all ought to make a little book out of this.
Well, I got to say, this is what I've been noodling on, and Robin and I haven't even talked about this, but this is something that we would. This is the typical kind of thing that we would noodle on. I've been thinking a lot about the difference between negotiation and collaboration, right? And we talk a lot in consulting circles, especially about, oh, we want to collaborate on this, when we really mean we want to negotiate. I've got a checklist of things that I want. You've got a checklist of things that you want. We're going to show up and we're going to horse swap, right? That's negotiation. But collaboration is a really different thing. If there's an objective at all, and not to steal your thunder, it's the greater good, right? If there's anything at all, we're looking for something
Right,
a
right,
step
right,
above
right.
a deliverable, a step above an agenda outcome. So I think that's the key difference. And we don't know what it's going to be until we start creating it together. I was going to say co-create, but I'm so over that word. But
Yeah.
until we start creating it together, we
Well,
don't
and
really know
I'm
what it
I'm fascinated. Now I definitely, as soon as we hang up, I want to schedule some time so we can talk about collaboration versus negotiation. So this is just another question for those in the audience. If you're listening, is we're talking about this unique relationship. You might think, huh, I actually have that's so and so in my life. Like I never thought about labeling that way, but I already have that. So I would just ask you to think about, like, do you already have something that's similar to this in your professional life? Or maybe or maybe not. So just kind of think about that for a moment because it's going to be really important as we go through the next couple of steps. So, Loretta, I kind of know the answer for you for this. And I would also just say you're certainly not limited in any way to just having one. I mean, having one is amazing, but if you have a collection for various purposes, that's great too. JD, what about you? Do you have somebody in your life that
Yeah,
functions as a
I'm
thought
gonna I'm
buddy?
gonna plead the Fifth Amendment. I have 50 people I talk to every week, but I don't think I have a thought buddy. No, I mean, you talk to different people about different things, but not a thought buddy the way we're defining it.
Well, let's see if we can maybe inspire you to change that by the end of this call. All
Yeah.
right. So, a couple of things. The third concept that we wanted to leave you with is really how to make this work. All right. So, if you think about it, as we've talked about, this is kind of different from those other high trust relationships you have in your career, and it has this kind of intent, but it has intentionality to it. So, what I really want to emphasize is that the format is not what's important here. The keeping the structure as light as possible increases the chances that it's going to be able to take hold and maybe kind of grow from there. So it might be something like Loretta and I like to do a quarterly walk when it's nice out and we do some kind of periodic check-ins, but it never feels heavy or like, oh, that's recurring meetings on the calendar. Here we go. It doesn't feel like that at all. It's something I really look forward to. So the format is really up to you and your thought buddy to make it whatever will work for you. The key is making it kind of light and doable enough that you actually get it on the calendar and do it versus trying to kind of construct something that's a little bit feels too onerous. So, Loretta, what would you add to that?
I think that's right. I think I like knowing that when we have them scheduled because I have like there's a little shoebox in my mind that's the talk to Robin about this shoebox where all those little notes, all those sticky notes end up. And so it always makes me feel better to know to see that on the calendar and to remember what's in that shoebox. Because I while we don't have agendas, we certainly have things to chew on.
Yes. Yeah, I love that.
But
JD,
so
any reaction? Yeah.
one of the things that strike me is that as I was kind of streaming through the various people I talked to, going, no, 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 it needs to be somebody that doesn't have a stake in anything I'm doing. My family, my investors or co-workers, it needs to be someone who's independent because otherwise, by definition, they're gonna have an agenda of some sort,
Yeah.
conscious or subconscious.
Yeah, great
Yes.
point.
Yeah, that is a really fantastic point. And
Yeah, I think you ought to mention that, add that one somewhere up earlier. That,
I'm like,
That's
yeah,
a great point.
yeah, we need to back up a slide and do some live editing here. So
yeah.
what a great thought buddy, JD, you just were for us. But yeah, I think that's exactly right. So I would say Loretta and I, we have worked together in the past, and I would be delighted to actually work on a real project with you again. But that's really not the core of our relationship. It's not competitive at all. We cheer each other on, and I don't. And I know whatever she wants to do, she's ultimately going to carry it forward. Like she's not asking for me to lift anything and kind of carry it with her. And so it makes it super easy for me to kind of, challenge some ideas because I know I'm not going to walk away with any action items. So, Loretta, what about you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I think one of the things that encourages me about that is good for me about our relationship in particular is that I can get a little too cerebral on things, and Robin is a get stuff done girl, and so like that's one of the areas where she's constantly pushing me a little bit, not in any explicit way, but just by example, like so that's one of the yeah there's also just that real it's just how we show up as people tends to inspire and move us forward.
Well, what you're also talking about, and again, it's subconscious, is your archetypes. Um, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the leader, lover, action, creator, inventor, philosopher, um, magician, so on, right?
Yeah.
So if everyone was the cerebral seeker, and not the organizing doer or maker or builder, then you get together. It would be like a bunch of professors who get together in college and they talk about all how they're going to save the world, and then they walk out and nothing gets done
I think it's done.
because they're just
Yeah.
thinkers. So that's another. Um, I don't know that again, I think it happens magically, not by an assessment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it could be another good indicator that, well, you might have a great relationship, but this thought buddy system isn't working because you're too similar in your
Mhm.
archetypes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
think
could
that's right.
be. Yeah, it could be. Um, yeah, and I would say, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the word accountability came up for me. And I
Mhm.
would say
Of course.
that there's a very incredibly light level of some accountability built
Yeah.
in, but like I would never, we don't take notes, there's no action items, I don't follow up. I mean, unless that was a specific request, I wouldn't follow up to be like, oh, what did you ever do with that idea, like um and vice versa, because there's so many ideas that we have that really, like, after you talk them through, you just kind of want to let them go. But there is this sense that you continue to kind of grow and push yourself and come up with, just generate kind of that creativity. So I don't know, Loretta, what do you feel about the accountability piece?
I think there's accountability in almost every other relationship in my life in some way, shape, or form. It is that the rubber meets the road. There are people who expect things from me. One of the things that I think makes this thought buddy relationship so powerful is that the only expectation is that we show up and be really, really highly present with each other in the moment. That's the accountability. The accountability is getting eyeball to eyeball and just being 100% in with you on whatever it is that your brain is chasing in that moment. I think that's it. I think that's the requarement.
Yeah, I
And
love
that's
it.
not
Beautifully
nothing.
said.
That's not
I
nothing.
think so. What I was doing like a Venn diagram. Okay, left brain nuclear engineer, math major. That's me. But the outcome might be a more creative, innovative, or I vented. But really, what's happening is someone was listening and caring and was completely present in a
Mhm.
non-judgmental manner. And that's what you just said. And that's really, it doesn't matter what any of the accountability, it's somebody who is present, supportive, and caring, which is the, most primal emotion we all need. And so few have.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so true. And few of us feel like that we have that in kind of in a professional setting as well. And so that's, I think really the opportunity here. So
Is
if you,
it, I'm going to challenge you on that. Is it
yeah,
professional? I don't think so. I think there's the inner game and the outer game. The inner game is our thoughts, beliefs, fears, worries. It's invisible. The outer game is our practical, physical life and relationships. I think everything you're doing is an inner game value proposition, which has impact in the outer
On the
game.
other game. Right.
yeah. Yeah, I love that phrasing. So yeah, I would agree with that. I would just say for me, most of the application, or at least just the ideas that Loretta that I bring to the conversation with Loretta, have some kind of relationship to things I'm writing about, speaking
Mhm.
about, or coaching about. So I kind of, in my mind, lump those with my kind of professional world. Now, occasionally she is a mother that has children that are she's about 10 years ahead of me in terms of mothering. So yes, on occasion I'll bring her like a mothering challenge, and and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But for the most part, we talk about things that are related to the creative work that we do.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question. The output that is resulting in our physical lives, relationship, business, Do you think that there is an internal block of fear, blame, shame, guilt, persecution, betrayal, something that is a wound or a blockage that the thought buddy process is helping to release, which then opens the brain and neural pathways to the objective, the outer game objective? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I
It's a
think it
deep
does.
question there. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead, Loretta.
No, I think so. I do resonate with that, and I would just say this is not this is what Robin I think was getting at when she was talking about the trust factor, right? And I think it's why, as you, JD, were kind of going through your list of people that, is this my thought buddy? Is that my thought buddy? It's because of they're they're just, it is a selective process,
It's a
and
very
maybe,
special relationship.
yeah, maybe what I'm taking away from this conversation more than anything, is how lucky I am to have someone for whom professional life and personal life overlaps in such a way that there is both high trust, but also, um, it.
You
Yeah,
know, you know what it
I'm
is
dealing
is
with the wounding piece, and I'm trying to think because that is not necessarily present in every other relationship, right? I mean, there are those places where you do want to guard yourself.
wound might be one example of a limiting belief. And so really maybe what the thought besides, look, I think the number one, what I hear you saying and what I'm feeling is the number one reason why you do this is what we said before. It is someone who is supporting me and caring and is present. And we could jabber on about anything. It doesn't matter. I just feel someone is supporting and caring and present, which is very rare. Then I think that's the number one, if I could use the term value proposition. But then to the point you're making, Robin, there is a benefit that you're getting in your physical, practical outer game life. Um, and, so then I mentioned maybe it was wounds. Wounds is, that's pretty deep and it's therapy. So let's stay away from that. But maybe it's just a limiting belief, or even better, it's an expanding awareness discussion. You're expanding, uh, you're either overcoming a limiting belief, or you're expanding your awareness to something you hadn't thought of.
Yeah. I think the foundational beliefs that I have, and I think Loretta has too, and why it works for us is one that I believe there is another person out there that has thoughts and questions that are that will kind of help push me to grow. And in this case, it happens to be her. So you have to kind of believe that other people might be able to add to your ideas. And this belief that um, we're not in competition, that there is abundance. And I think that also makes it different because, JD, part of what you're talking about is almost describing like a dear friend, a best friend. And I'm so fortunate to have dear friends, but I don't necessarily think of them as people who are going to like push ideas professionally. They're going to have all the caring and trust. Loretta, I think, has all the caring and trust, but also is really skilled at just trying to, okay, take that a step further. And have you heard about this? And just really kind of driving it forward. And that's, I think, what kind of makes this relationship a little bit unique. But very possible if you believe there's somebody out there that might be able to help you and that you could be in non-competition with, that is going to result in a better, bigger idea. All right. So, what I would like to kind of think about now is we said we were going to start to move towards some reflection on how this might apply in your life and maybe getting people to think about how they can commit to taking action and moving themselves forward if this idea is intriguing. So, just for a moment, think about what kind of topic for you might be beneficial for a thought buddy conversation. So it can really be anything, but as we've been talking about, maybe there's something that's popped up and you thought, oh, I'd really like to talk to somebody about this. And so I would just kind of ask you silently to kind of think about that. And Loretta, you just shared one that you're thinking about just, between collaboration and negotiation, which I would suspect is maybe for a thought piece, an article or something that you're writing. So it's a
Yeah.
creative
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. It's a creative idea.
Yeah. JD, what about you? What topic might feel appropriate for you?
Um, I don't feel I need it on any of the career or leadership. My passion is writing and coaching CEO and executives. So I'm a little bit like Loretta in that I'm a very cerebral thinker. And so I really enjoy just riffing and conversations about the purpose and meaning of life and nature and reality and why people do the things they do. And, you know, the big questions: who am I? Where'd I come from? Why am I here? Was Yoda right?
Um,
And of course, Yoda was right. So,
yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. All
You know,
right.
something that
Okay.
occurs to me, Robin, on this is one of our early conversations that came up was when we first started working together. I was not long out of television news and was really new to consulting. And so I had this story that lasted for a really long time that I'm not really a skilled consultant. I'm just an outsider. I don't have that much. And I remember, like, there were a number of times when you said to me, it is time for you to drop that story. It is time for, like, you explicitly said to me, like, it is time for you to move on from that story. You're an excellent consultant.
That's
And
true.
it's funny because that became, I mean, that became a real pivot point for me professionally. So I do think that, I mean, you were talking about limiting beliefs, JD. I think that that is one of the things that was very present in our early conversations. I don't know. What do you think, Robin?
My gosh. Well, and it's but now that you talk about that was quite a long time ago. So it's like I don't even remember really a time before I thought of you as this expert consultant. But one of the things that Loretta has this that almost encyclopedic knowledge of things related to professional development and just resources and skills. And so I mean, there's probably been 100 times over the last 10 years where I've reached out and be like, hey, I heard about this or what thing could like she's almost been kind of like my Google's before I go to Google, I go to Loretta and be like, can you point me in the right direction? Because she is just so smart in this kind of world that we are in personal and professional development and coaching. And so, anyway, so that's just an example of something that I think a little more tangible, but it's something that I really rely on you for. But so for those out there, I would just invite you to think about who in your network right now. So if you don't feel like you have somebody explicitly in this role, think about who in your network might be someone that would challenge your thinking in a way that feels energizing and expansive and not competitive. So kind of maybe start to do a little brainstorming on who that might be. And then to couple that, what's one bold idea or something that you've been stuck on that you might want to talk through out loud? Like maybe it's something you've been spinning on and you're ready to kind of get out of your head and kind of just hear it out loud. I would ask you to kind of think about those two things. And then what would be possible? So it's kind of easy, like, or maybe not easy, but we can kind of think about maybe the who and the what. But just take a moment. What would be possible for you if you had this go-to person for really thinking big and taking action? So like what could happen? So JD, what might change for you if you had a designated thought buddy?
mm, I think I probably would work less
Interesting.
and
Interesting. Why
play
do you say
more.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. What about having a thought buddy would result in you working less?
Well, because again, I said my passion is I want on my tombstone not CEO, nuclear submarine officer, any of that stuff, television show creator, radio show host. I don't know if you know any of those things about me. Game creator, all that stuff. What I want on my tombstone is he was a teacher.
Mm.
And so I love sharing knowledge and wisdom. I love writing. I have one published book. I have 10 more in my laptop that are finished that I've never finished publishing, and they're all great books. But I never stop doing to go back and finish what is really my love.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's a limiting belief in here somewhere, um, which I picked up on about 10 minutes ago. There was something you said, and I didn't get it. And I knew, okay, there's a limiting belief in here right now. And so I got a little quiet, because I was like, what did they just say, which didn't process, which therefore must be a limiting belief of mine. So you're stimulating neuro pathways here.
Love that.
Interesting. Oh, Loretta, what about you? What do you feel like is possible when you think out loud with someone else versus kind of noodling in your head?
Oh, just clarity. I think mostly clarity of getting it out and putting it, it's the Bob Keegan subject object switch, right? Like when it's behind you, you're subject to it and it's just kind of pushing you. But when you say it out loud, you can kind of put it out there, walk around it, manipulate it, pull on the strings. And I feel like that's what we do is I just get so much more clarity around ideas when we kick them around and back and forth with each other.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I can't even think of like the number of times that one or both of us have said something like, well, now that I'm talking about it,
Yeah,
it just
yeah,
makes so much sense. I do
yeah,
think
yeah,
there's some you can skip many steps ahead when you just
yes.
get it out loud versus running those cycles in your head. So
How many
That's very
times, how many
important.
times has one of us said, I've never tried to say this out loud before, so give
yeah,
me a minute.
yeah, just
Yeah.
wait a second. I'm
That's
just
pretty
gonna
funny.
say some words and then
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
we'll try to make sense of it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Well, good.
I mean, I'm not sure we've said it, any of us in this conversation, but this requires vulnerability. I mean, that's really important. There's been vulnerability shared here, um, and that's what makes this kind of magical.
Yes. Yeah,
Here's
JD,
an
I'm so glad
interesting
you said that.
question. Do you think
Yeah.
it works with three people?
I think it just has.
I think it
Yeah, right. Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and JD, it's so funny because when we started this conversation, you kind of made a joke at the beginning about like, oh, can we do this with three? And I think absolutely. To me, the key is that this is a small enough group, just the three of us talking right now, where we feel like there's been enough kind of give and take, and we're not, having to raise your electronic hand to kind of get a word in, and but we lose some of that intimacy as we add people. And I think that's more of what we experience most in our kind of day-to-day work life, or the opposite. I think I'm kind of typically at either extreme. One of my favorite things to do is wake up in the morning, get my coffee, feed the dogs, and sit down by myself to journal and then to write. And that is very a solo activity. But then once it gets to 9:30, it is back to back group conversations the rest of the day. And so I almost live on those two ends of the spectrum. So if we can bring some intentionality about, scoping down the size of the group, where it's one other person or maybe just two other people, you just get so much more. So
think that's true.
yeah. All right. So here we are landing on the one action that I would really, really encourage everybody to take is think about who that thought buddy candidate might be. Maybe you reach out to them, you kind of share the concept and gauge their level of interest. If now's not the right time for that person, don't give up. Maybe just kind of go a little bit further back in your network, or maybe this is a new relationship you might want to start if there's somebody that you've been noticing online or in other networking circles that you want to reach out to. It doesn't have to be a longstanding existing relationship. And I would encourage you just to reach out. This does require some vulnerability, as JD was just saying, to kind of put yourself out there and be like, hey, I want to have this, I heard about this kind of relationship. I think you would be great for all these reasons. Are you interested? And then keeping in mind that the format matters much less than the intention that you're bringing to that conversation. So if somebody says, yeah, but I really only have, a couple hours every couple months for a walk, great. It doesn't have to look like anything that's not going to be sustainable for the people involved. So definitely encourage everyone to kind of take that action. And then just to close, I just, really believe that I believe so deeply in this value of a thought buddy. It's just been a game changer in my life in just so many ways. I'm so lucky and so thankful to have Loretta in my life. And I would encourage you to really think about doing the same. So I would love to hear JD and Loretta, any of your kind of closing thoughts before we close out the conversation.
To me, it reminds me of the old pen pal story,
Yeah.
before we had phones and emails and everything, we wrote. I don't think that it has to be in person. And in fact, I encourage a lot of my clients to have walk-in talks because when we're physically present, first of all, we're not moving. It's a different physiological, biological experience than walking. But also you get distracted by the video and the image and your appearance or whatever. So walking and talking, I think, is very powerful. So, because you said meet up and get together, I don't think you
Right. Oh,
have to
yeah,
do
yeah.
that. I think
Yes.
that
No, no. Could be
walk and
anywhere
talk
in the,
is good.
yeah, anywhere in the world. Yes. Virtual is great. Yeah. Loretta,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I've enjoyed this conversation so much. We've talked about our friendship and our thought buddy collaboration many times over the years. I don't think we've ever spent this much time talking about it. And this conversation has made me think of two things. First, how lucky I am to have you as my thought buddy. And secondly, just the hope that everybody has a thought buddy as good as mine.
Yeah, that's cute. That's
The world
great.
would
Very
be a better
sweet.
place. The world would be a
Yeah.
better place.
It would. It would. Well, thank you both so much for spending a little time with me today. I absolutely love this. And I
Yeah,
would
this
just
is great.
encourage,
I,
yeah,
I I've got people I want to email this to as soon as we post the recording up.
awesome.
So
Okay.
I'm
Well, I'll go
excited
ahead
about
and
it.
I'll stop the recording now and hold on one moment. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
joining
Thank
us.
you.